Okay, so here's another example. Now, the first thing that we should always do, I'll write down step 1, is write down SOHCAHTOA. Write down SOHCAHTOA. Step 2 is to identify the angle that we're talking about. Oops, excuse me. Delete that. Identify the angle. And the angle here is obviously the 35 degrees. And label the sides with opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Okay, so let's do that bit. Now, in the triangle, the opposite the right angle is always the hypotenuse, so that's our H for hypotenuse. Opposite the angle that we're talking about is this one here. So this is my opposite, and the one that's touching the angle is the adjacent, so that's my A. Okay, so when I've done that, I'm going to, step 3, I'm going to tick the known and unknown sides. And the unknown sides are the one that we want to find, and the known side is obviously the 12. So what do we know? We know the H, so we tick H, and we know that we want to involve the X, which is the O. So we're going to tick the O's. And we notice that it is the sign here that contains the 2 ticks that we need. So step 4 is use the relationship with 2 ticks. In this case, sine of the angle, 35 degrees, is equal to the opposite. Remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. So therefore we have the sine of 35 is the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 12. And then we multiply both sides by 12 to get x on its own. So it's 12 times the sine of 35. And then I'm going to put that into the calculator now. 12 times the sine of 35. And I get 6.88. 6.88 centimeters. I just check the accuracy in the question. 3 significant figures it says there, so that's 3 significant figures, and that's my answer. Okay, let's do another example. So go back here, and I'm going to do an answer question in section B. So let's just take a screenshot of that. This one in section B, there. Okay, step 1, write down SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Label your triangle. The one opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. The one next to the angle is the adjacent. And the one opposite the angle is the opposite. Now let's tick the ones that we know. We know the hypotenuse. Well, we don't know the hypotenuse. We're involving the hypotenuse. So that's my H's. And we know the adjacent, which is 14. So we tick the adjacents. And this time we get CAH. That's the one that we're using because that's got 2 ticks on it. So we write down now the cosine of the angle, which is 15, is adjacent, which is 14, over x. Now this case, it's very slightly different. If you look at the previous example, if you look just here, the unknown that we're trying to find, which is the x, was on the denominator. So we multiplied both sides by 12 to get that denominator on its own. In this case, the unknown is on the denominator this time. So we need to turn everything upside down. But the easiest way to do that is just to swap over the x and the cos 15. So we're going to do that. So x is 14 over the cosine of 15. We can just swap them round. Oops, I'll get that switched on. X is 14 over the cosine of 15. And if we put that into the calculator, obviously you're going to do this on your proper calculator. So 14 divided by the cosine of 15. We get 15.5, and that's three significant figures. So it's very important that you remember how to get my x back on the numerator. I just swap these two around here. Whereas in the previous example, I multiplied both sides by 12 to get x on its own.